So my name is Remco Wijnen. I think most of you know me, but we have an introductory slide, so I'll do it. I'm an EUC specialist for Cloudhouse, which is a London-based company, but obviously this being a sponsor session, we will talk the rest of the session about what we do. I'm a Citrix CTP since 2013, and I'm also co-founder and steering group member of the Dutch Citrix user group.
Okay.
Why don't I flip the slide?
Sorry, goedemiddag, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Good afternoon.
yeah, very well.
I don't know what I said, but that was the toughest part of my presentation. So yeah, and definitely he convinced me to come over, and this is my first one, and he said E2E is the most accepting audience, most forgiving ones. So I just thought I'll step up once, and you can forgive me for all the mistakes I do. And again, I was a little nervous because Benny and Jim are presenting in the next session. I told him, okay, now who's going to come to our session? But surprisingly, the CEO is here. So yeah.
I know what they do.
You definitely made a right choice. And since none of you know me, I'll give a short intro. I'm a developer by heart, and I've been coming from a Linux world. And I hated Windows. I really hated Windows earlier, back in my college days. But then I started going across industries, and I've worked in telecom, banking, five of the industries. And I did learn how to adopt an operating system, how to change your ways as per the operating system. And there are a few interesting things. I worked for the railways in London, which connects your city airport, London Heathrow Airport, to the city. And that's the only train which works on time. So I take all the credit for that thing. And in France, I was, my team, among the whole team members, I was the only non-French speaking person. You can imagine that. My QA was French, everyone French, so it was quite a challenge. And then I've started working at virtualization industry with Cloudhouse, and I've been here for 4 years, I guess. And I've filed 5 patents on similar technologies, app virtualization related. So my part is mostly in the research team, and I'm 50% of it is development work still. Other 50% is knowing other products, finding out things. So that's it for me.
So I use this slide often, even when I do a non-Cloudhouse presentation, just to give a quick overview of what we do. So just to get a good view, who has heard of Cloudhouse before? Wow.
From
yeah.
Who knows what we do?
That's your word.
So we do app virtualization, but we do it in a bit different way. So we do app virtualization, as you might imagine, but we have a virtualization layer that can also fix application compatibility issues. You can think of this as a redirection engine, which can not only redirect files or registry, as you might already do today, but we can also redirect API calls. The idea, obviously, to fix the app compat issues you might have today, but also to make your apps evergreen. So once we have them working in our container, they will work on the next version of Windows, which in the new times is not 1.5 or 2 years away, but it's probably in a few months away. So that's kind of what we try to do. We have a little agenda, which I believe you were going to.
I'd like to go through.
Yeah.
Okay, so first thing is, why do we survive? Any startup should have a reason to survive. It's not, we don't have a luxury like a big name that they float a product and people can start adapting it. So you have to prove to the market again and again why you are existing for. So we'll describe few of the challenges which are in the market currently. And again, most of the time we are seen as a compatibility solution, but we are going beyond that now. Of course, compatibility is at the core of our product, but we are going in different areas where how can we address different challenges in the industry. So I think Remco will take you through, based on the VDI like Pro stats, what are the challenges in the industry and how do we address them. That's the second one. And I forgot to mention about my sixth invention, which is a time machine. So I'll take you through that in after a few slides, what I mean by my version of time machine is. And then we'll go through different virtualization details, which you'll not find on our website. That's not a marketing material. But because I'm a developer, I have to speak what my product does. So I'll be going through a whole 360-degree angle of what I mean by virtualization, what are the areas we affect, and how we basically fix the compatibility and other issues. And tricks of the trade, then evergreen IT, and we'll talk about a bit about MSIX because most of it is still under NDA, but we are a partner, a chosen partner for that. So we'll give a small briefing of what that is. He's more interested in that. So, and then we'll take you through a few demos as well, just to show that what we are telling is not telling, it's just to show it's real. So I'll hand it over to them.
Yep. And if you're interested in MSIX further, then we take it in this session. Timothy is right after us. He's going to tell you at least a little bit more, hopefully way more. So it's in the same room, so you can stay here. So I found this picture, which is Startup Journey to Cloud, and I thought it was very interesting because it kind of highlights, if you are a young and new company, you don't have the legacy of Windows applications, you don't really have the issues that many big enterprise organizations have today. So it's very easy. You take all your applications as SaaS, you don't really need a Windows desktop anymore, your life is easy. I think for the majority of the people in this room, it will probably a little bit more like this. So this picture is really nice, legacy software, and I like the cloud architects who are trying to beam it, the sysadmin who's trying to kill it, and probably the Java developers who try to rescue it.
It says senior developers.
Senior Java developers. They know how to use other people's frameworks, which is the difference. Another interesting thing is how many apps does an average organization have, and I actually found some numbers on this. And enterprise apparently have around 600 apps. Large companies, this is Europe scale, not US scale, have 200 apps, and even very small companies have about 75 apps. And the question is, are these the real numbers? So how many apps do you really have? So and that obviously brings Shadow IT. Shadow IT is obviously evil, and I found this. This is actually called Louis de Funès, who is a French comic, and the movie is called Herr Moulin. It's quite funny, so look it up and watch it. But obviously the message is you'll have many, many more apps because nobody knows the real numbers. And even with cloud today, people just take the credit card and buy stuff that you don't know about. But apparently, if we believe Gartner, they say that 51 to 60% of the core business apps for government were implemented before 2009. So 2009 was the release of Windows 7. So this means that 51 to 60% of their apps were written for XP or maybe even earlier. Okay? But even the top performing organizations, 42% of their apps are XP apps. And that's why I took these stats. So say that you would have 100 applications on average in a company, and 50% of those would be legacy. And even if you would be able to phase out one a month, and if there's someone in the room who can do that, I will be in shock and awe. But it will take you 4 years to phase out this application. So if you are a large enterprise and you have hundreds of these, it will never happen. Yes, Sean?
Do you know how many Windows apps there are in existence?
I've heard the number before, but please.
16 million.
16 million. Wow. And I think the number isn't even decreasing.
How did you count that?
It was announced.
It's big.
It's because every citizen of the Netherlands wrote a Windows app.
Damn DB6.
So, and this one is even more interesting. So Gartner says by 2023, 90% of those applications will still be in use. And there is a really good reason for this, because if this app supports your business process and your business process hasn't changed, businesses don't want to spend millions in rewriting these applications. Okay? And someone, very smart guy, he mentioned that after nuclear war it'll be cockroaches and Windows apps, all 60 million.
And Twinkies.
And Twinkies.
Twinkies.
Yeah, but that doesn't sound really interesting. I thought the cockroaches looked much better. So nuclear war, we obviously think about this man, who is ready to press the button, although allegedly he's now willing to talk and speak to us. But we will see more of them later, because this is how people fix it today. If they have app comfort issues, they just run XP or Server 2003 somewhere, maybe even with Presentation Server 4.5. You will not believe how many of those are out there. It's like a history museum. That's why I like this one. So apparently the Dutch government paid 1.7 million euros to keep Server 2003 around. And that is a lot of money. But luckily we have the Brits who pay £5.5 million, which is before the pound tanked, to extend Windows XP support. Wow. And apparently even their latest big Navy vessel runs Swiss cheese OS. And this goes back to the Korea guy. So this is actually the telephone and the only way to communicate between North and South Korea. And I'm not sure if you can see this in the back, but it's fucking running Windows XP. So nuclear war depends on Windows XP. Wow.
Glad it's not Vista.
And this week I was in Moscow by invitation of Parallels, whose presentation maybe saw here at E2E. And we had an opportunity to visit some of Moscow, and they took us to the Kremlin. And what do you know? What do I see in the Kremlin? Behind this fence, and I was obviously not supposed to take this picture, they were just running XP. And they use another Russian search engine, which is Google, which was also interesting. But XP is everywhere, that's sort of the message. But if you still run Windows XP, what does that bring you? So I think it brings you this free encryption. Okay? So this we need to fix. And even if you look at cloud options, this is the control panel for Azure, or Azure as the English say. XP is not an option. This is the oldest thing you can get, Windows 7. So that's a question to the room. Who knows when Windows 7 support ends?
Here, extended support or?
So mainstream support is already ended. Extended support ends 2020. So that's pretty close. So if you're still running Windows 7 and you're not already migrating, or at least planning a migration, you're too late. You'll be the next Windows XP. But that's just, you know, what we see in the field. But I'm sure many of you know the VDI Like a Pro survey, and we saw the results from Ruben. And interestingly, oh, you answered this one? Well, your slide. Mine.
Fine. Okay, thank you all. We have been voted third in virtualization survey. There was one question on app virtualization, and obviously, even before the survey, we knew who our first and second. It's like Tim Mangan sitting here, Apply is a sealed first winner for sure. And then again Sean Bass, so Thin App is the second. So getting into third in itself was a win. And for me it's a really good moment because I've been working on this very product. So I wanted to thank you all because we have been voted, not just selected by an industry expert. So if you guys ever voted for us. I take back all my thank yous.
So if you did vote for us, come to Priya later for a beer.
Yeah. Otherwise, just don't show me your face.
I voted 5 times. You get 5
minutes.
Or you voted all 5. But more interestingly, if we look at some of the statistics, apparently almost 25% is still running XenApp 6. Oh my God, or older. These are not, you know, your average user, average guy on the street. These are the people essentially here in the room. And if you look at what's their most important initiative, it's migrate to Windows 10 and migrate away from Windows 7 and 8, so that's logical. And if you look at this graph, which OS have you deployed today, and if you, the percentage for Server 2016 is still lower than 2008 R2. And then still there is even 2012 or 2003 and even not sure. Yes, Sean?
I would argue that stat is probably low because most of the people filling that survey are people who are in the know on the newer technology.
Yeah.
I bet when you go in the enterprise, you find 25% is low for 6.5 and lower.
Absolutely.
I would bet
That is
it's
good.
40–50%.
Yes. Great.
Got a month, guys. Get moving.
And I like this one as well because the idea is that Windows apps are going away. And those 60 million will become 15 million. But actually the number is increasing. And even still, the reality for most people is 100% of the applications are Windows applications. Wow. But then we go to the solution. I think you want a solution.
I want it. If it is audible, I'll keep the mic. Is it audible? Yeah, good. Thank you. Because I really like to be free-handed. I'm not used to the presentations. So yes, the solution part is where I'll take you through. So solutions part is where I'll give you a small glimpse. Of course, this is again, I think I just have 20 minutes of time or something. I don't want to overrun on Tim's session, so we'll keep it short. But I'll give you the core of what I think is, not from a sales or marketing point of view, but as a technical person, what I feel is more important. So I'll take you through a few of the slides. First is the main important slide. Oh, you're not smiling. You're helping me. Okay, so that's my time machine. Who has seen this earlier? You know my time machine. Yeah, this is Doctor Who. So Doctor Who had a time machine, which honestly I don't watch that serial, but I've just heard about it. And apparently now Doctor Who is a girl, so it's no more a man's world. I'm sorry for that. and it's a time lady now, not a time lord. So Doctor Who, if you know, time travel is something just in fictional stories everywhere, but we made it real, not for humans but for applications. So we do travel the journey. So our Dr. App, is the one who will make your apps fly within 20 seconds, cover 2 decades of your journey, which is whenever XP was released to whenever Windows 10 is released. So if I put it in a small slide, this is the machine, whatever you call it. Then this is the old era where it's like 20 years back, I guess, or 10, 15 years back at least. And that's the new world. That's the new world. So if you see that, that's a time travel for 20 years. And now, my old guy, who's apparently become old now, which is my old application, is really struggling to cross the border, go to the new one without having a total rewrite. So my machine, he just gets into that, and there he is, the new shiny new application on a new world. So honestly, this is like a funny thing, but I wanted to increase it so that it makes you understand this is all we do. If you see that right now, most of our proposition is, and we are doing it, we are actually doing it. So if you can see Kevin, he works, he's working on our products and in central government, I guess. So he's been seeing so many old apps, and like he said, Tron said, it's like 16 million old apps accounted for, and unofficially, I've heard of very big figure, like double the number officially accounted for. So you can imagine all these are a pain for people like us who like to develop code, who like to be in, go to the latest edge. We don't watch these, but there are many organizations, they just can't do it. It's not feasible for them. So this whole journey, we are traveling in 20 seconds. Maybe less than 20 seconds, I don't know. Just click, and you get a new package. So that's your time travel. Was it good? It deserves an applause. The after lunch sessions are not good. That's what I said, legacy apps within milliseconds. So this is one of our customers who drew this for their own some internal circulation. So I took it from them. So this is like a vicious circle. You have a traditional application which keeps going on and on, round and round, and there's no way out, because all you have to do to move this to the latest platform is rewrite the code, testing cycle, release cycle. There is a lot of pain. And I'm a developer, I know how difficult it is to change the legacy code. You never know what you're going to break. Because somebody who has written it 20 years back, I don't know who he is and why he committed that code. So if this is the kind of thing, we jump it on to the modern cycle, and then you get all this evergreen IT, all the lovely things which are available right now. So to go to that, we'll start with the small demo.
Yep.
Okay. So that's the auto packager. So if you see, our product has 2 sides of it, if you can imagine. One is the packaging thing, which is just like AppV sequencer, everyone knows that. So packaging it and then putting it on the deployment machine. But the part where I work, my development is on the deployment machine, which is the virtualization, where it actually kicks in, starts doing it. So first I'll take you through, just for the end-to-end journey, I'll take you through quickly packaging slides. I don't know how many of you can see it, sorry. But this is a very small workflow of you start a capture, just like you do in AppV, install a particular program, and then this is something which we invested a lot of time in, which is running your application. Because we don't want to capture only your snapshot. That will give us some information about what files, what registries are done to virtualize it, but we want to capture what does it look like when it is launched. When it is launched, does it open a mutex? Does it open a semaphore? What network ports it is using? Are those network ports in compliance with what customer wants to open in his network? So this is like runtime analysis right at the stage of packaging. That gives us a more in-depth thing, or that is like a more guarantee that this will be working, because we know how many kernel objects it has. We know whether we need to redirect them or we need to isolate them, what kind of security we have to put in there. So I'm not sure if AppV has this, but we do have it. So it's the runtime analysis part. And then again, this is where we capture the file and we show it to the user. These are the files, these are the registries, these are the kernel objects, semaphores, named pipes, everything, whatever we have analyzed, we'll show it, whether you want it in there, you want it isolated or not, or by default, if we think we know about this app, Citrix will see it. That's an app, we know it uses these particular semaphores, it's a known app. So we do it in our engine, yes, we know we want to isolate it, or we want to secure it. So that's where we get rid of these security risks as well, because from XP, people there developing at that time did not know all the security implications it might have had now. That's the reason they are able to hack it easily. So now we make sure that your application, even if it has some vulnerabilities, we identify it and we block those, we isolate those, so that nobody can make use of your vulnerabilities. And then it's simple registry and then finish the package and all done. So you can migrate it, you can put it on the cloud, you can put it in a USB stick, and It's a really lightweight thing. I'm showing you this because this side of it, again, you can't see it, but this is like hardly few MBs of data. We are agentless, we don't need any kernel mode, we don't need any admin rights, and we are really lightweight. We make sure that we don't add a lot of footprint because application itself will carry a lot of footprint. We don't want to add on to that saying, okay, you have to install an agent or you will need some 100 MB of data. We don't. Our application. Yeah.
So the basic architecture is a little bit like ThinApp.
Yeah,
so where you have
yes.
some kind of wrapper process that is started first, and which then starts the virtualized application.
Kind of, yes.
Something like that.
Yeah. So if you see that wrapper process, that's our virtualization engine, which that starts first and then that spawns and it takes care of everything. So as long as the application is working, we know it's under our control. Whatever it is doing, we are monitoring it. And if you see configuration-wise, we don't want to limit it to geek and programming type of people. You have simple XMLs. You just want to say, I want to redirect my D drive or some get NAS box, not NAS box, say some network share 1, which they had 20 years back. Now they don't have it anymore. Just say redirect from network share 1 / whatever it is to C drive, whatever it is. So it's as simple as that, and you don't have to compile it, build it. We want to make it as easy to use as possible. So that's any kind of redirection. You want to isolate which kernel objects you want to isolate, which port numbers you want to redirect. Everything is there right in XML. So that makes it simple for people to adopt. Yep.
And is that packaged in one file, or is it just
this
a directory?
sorry, this is this file.
Yeah, and what's the file? Is it a zip file or?
No, it's just a directory. You can.
So it is a directory, not a file.
Yeah. So the perception of a container is that you get a single file or a VHDX. And actually, if you look at these are runtime and configuration files. But if you look in the data folder, you will see the actual applications, files, and folders. Because we have seen that this gives us the absolute best performance possible. Because we don't need to expand the virtual file system, which costs memory and performance.
Yeah, it's fine. I just wanted to understand.
Yes, but we actually think this is a better idea, and it also makes updating very easy because you could theoretically replace a single file.
You don't have any third-party packaging format. You have
exactly.
It's just a plain file system and take it from there.
So Priya, one of the problems that I saw with ThinApp is it really killed session density.
Sorry.
So some of the problems is some of the other ones is they really destroy session density. The overhead is used up for virtualizing. How efficient are you with that? And for example, on things like XenApp, try to run 50 users of something like an accounting package native and run it 50 users virtualized, you can't get 50. There's a significant amount of overhead. How do you address that? And do you know what it is?
We didn't do a benchmark, I guess, for this kind of scenario. But if you see from a technical point of view, this is the only thing which will be running, which is not even 1 MB. And again, I don't know if I'm getting your question right, but if you have, say, 50 users, you can either club them into the same virtualization engine. We don't propose that approach. We always propose having separate sessions for each of the process. But if it's really a critical point for your business, you can think about it.
Yeah, I would say our overhead is minimal, which is maybe the marketing answer, but it is.
Yep.
We haven't measured it, but due to the way our architecture works, I think it's limited.
Now keep in mind, people are willing to pay the price for it because if they want to get their app to run, and this is the only way, then they'll deal with session density.
And typically, all the type applications ran on all the type hardware, so they will be significantly faster because you run new hardware. So it's difficult to measure the difference between what you had before and what you have now, because most of these apps, they don't run without us on the new system, so we can't really benchmark it.
Yeah, good fact.
So I got a comment, and admittedly I don't have a ton of experience with Cloudhouse. Most of my experience in the past is with Citrix streaming when that existed. AppV, did a ton of AppV and SoftGrid and ThinApp. But the problem that I found, and this was mostly in the SoftGrid 4.x era, is the overhead of virtualization largely had to do with the amount of file system or registry redirection. So if you had an application that was poorly written, which I think is a lot of what we're talking about here, the number of IOs that occur, whether it's file system or registry, had a direct impact on the overhead of the virtualization. So, as you know, Remco, you do a lot of software development. if I need to manipulate a 1K text file, I can do it one of two ways. I can perform a file open, read, close, every single string of data I need to get from that file, or I can load the file into memory and reference it from variables inside memory. My findings on app virtualization is the poorly written applications, which tends to be the ones you want to solve compatibility for, are the ones that are very poorly written, file open, read, close, and those are the ones that were most impacted by app virtualization. So I'm curious if you guys have thought about what things can be done to mitigate those behaviors to make the impact minimal.
Okay, fair enough. Very good question. I totally get it. I have the same experience. We don't have any specific mitigations to improve the performance of poorly written apps. I like the idea, so maybe I'll steal it from you.
Please do, we're not doing too much with thin apps.
Technically, we have the ability, right, because we control file open and file close.
Yeah.
And we could, in fact, if we analyze this behavior, we could keep the file handle open and not close it, and when it asks for it again, we just give it the old handle back.
Yeah.
So I think this is something we definitely do. It's not what we're doing today.
So my advice would be, if you're going to do something like that, apply some machine learning algorithms to how you monitor the application so that you know whether or not you could expect a buffered read and prepare for that, but not do it for every application.
Just to answer your question, I mean, this is not something in the product, but we have been doing research on this. One thing is this file handle retaining thing. We used to do it with our earlier product, which is now end of life, but it's called File Accelerator. We used to retain the handle because we used to rewrite the calls to a remote file system. We retained the handle, we made sure what is written, and then transfer. Now we don't continue that product anymore. It was to accelerate the network access of instead of writing to this file system, we're writing to the other one. To accelerate that, we did that kind of thing earlier. And about this tracking of actual intelligence thing which you said, we have a small prototype done, not a product release, but for the stateless applications where we keep these things saying, I know what, if this file has been created with some kind of credentials, then I know it's most likely to write on the disk. So stateless solution, which is mostly which will be for cloud and all, that has this kind of capability. But we need to think of this for every application, as you said.
You can fix folder redirection.
No, I can't reveal it, but we are going to do it a smarter way, not just like more redactions, no. So we are going to do it a smarter way.
To give you a little bit of a look into the kitchen, things we're looking at is, can we maybe change SAP1 clients or servers to SAP newer? Or can we, if the application does an MD5 hash, can we convert it to a SHA-512 hash, for instance?
Yeah.
So we're looking at that kind of optimization to go further than just make it work. But to be fair, there is so much legacy around, we can fill our lives with getting this legacy to work.
It's
but
like
we are thinking about, what improvements can we retrofit it. Other things we've looked at and have done in the lab is like retrofit high DPI into applications, and actually
that would be
that's looking very promising.
Yeah. So I like what you're doing.
Thank you, Ingmar.
Stop before the
Excellent.
What you're doing, I know it works. Just ignore it from here. But you're extending the life of applications.
Okay, I'll answer that very question. I have been asked this earlier. Okay, I need 2 hands to show that, please. This is a real common misconception, I will say. It's obvious. You are saying that we are keeping the app alive. An app is dangerous or legacy if it is hitting the operating system. If you see the operating system, if your old deprecated API hits it, or if your buggy application code or data bug, whatever it is, if it hits the operating system, if it executes on the OS, then it is bad. I know, that is a legacy app problem. What we are doing is we have our own virtual circle. We are modifying whatever your app is communicating, the events, the data, the APIs, before it hits the operating system, we are making it good. So either you change your code inside or you wrap it in a figure so that nothing dangerous goes out of the application. That's safe. We are converting, when I said old man is a shiny new man, I meant it. We are not migrating an old man to a new platform. It's dangerous. I don't want to do that. It might just ruin my NHS data one day. I don't know. We are in many organizations. So we are really making an old man a new man by changing those dangerous behaviors which those apps exhibited. It is not the same app. Of course, code is the same, but we know what we have been working on these bad applications for a long time. So we are well aware, and we know that certain actions shouldn't be triggered on the OS. We don't do that.
So to give an example around this, if you think about insecure, you probably think about Java, at least I do. And many applications require Java and maybe even very old versions, right? So what we can actually do is run your natively installed, for instance, Internet Explorer, but put the old Java version in our container and only run it for the specific URL that you authorize it for. So this means, yes, you have an older Java, but it's not accessible from outside, and it's only for this specific purpose. So I get your question, yep. And we try to do it as good as we can. Yeah.
And are there any applications that don't work in Snow?
Tribal-related apps, we don't really, we do handle it. We don't sell that solution, but of course he has fixed one recently. But we don't really sell it, saying we are not a kind of virtualization software for drivers, of course. That's not our
sometimes things that appear an app compat issue are actually just bugs in an application that you just didn't see before because the circumstances have changed or because you introduced a faster processor that changed the timing. So sometimes our PS guys just fix bugs in applications, which is technically not what we want to do, but we can help you with it. Yeah, it's just you can't buy a PS without the product. Shall we go on?
When's the session? 5 o'clock.
And nobody else says anything.
They just
keep talking.
You have to take your questions. 10 minutes, don't tell me. Okay. This is the most. Okay, come on. If you want to concentrate on 3 slides, these are the 3 ones. Forget about the slides. We are dumping them. So listen to my slides only. Okay, go. So you know what? This morning he dumped 10 slides in the front. I just planned for 40 minutes. Okay, anyway. So this is if you see it, I don't know if you can see it or not. But this is the virtualization spectrum. When I'm talking about virtualization, so if you see most of the applications are of course file and registry related, but we do address other subsystems as well. And specific to your question, JavaScript have many problems which we used to work on IE8, but IE11 has imposed many restrictions. So if you just launch a JavaScript with those kind of deprecated calls, it will not run on IE11. It's not a bug in the code, but it's just that IE guys have realized that it's dangerous. Don't allow it. So we modify that thing on the fly.
Are we talking about JavaScript downloaded from a website running, or are we talking about a script I'm launching as a user?
Downloaded from web server.
Sorry, I think they know better.
Imagine that you have an IIS backend with some intranet application. It consists of many JavaScript things. They get pushed into the browser. We intercept it. And
on the server side.
So we intercept it on the client side, but it comes unmodified from the server side. And if I tell it as simple as I can, we do a search and replace. And we replace incompatible Java with compatible Java, because we know IE11 doesn't accept this, but the replacement for it is that. So we just do search replace, and then we push it to the browser. And this means you can run the less worse IE11 compared to the very bad IE8.
Yeah, on the client side, that's good.
And that's like a recipe, because we do see similar in many applications have similar problems. So it's like a recipe. We know that if it's this kind of a Java version and it's using this, we know what to do with that. I'll quickly rush through the other ones. So if you see right here, file and registry, we all know redirection, file and registry to a virtual location. Kernel objects, we have been fixing many problems. A few of his demos are on making Skype run simultaneously, making Google Earth run simultaneously, 2 different versions of your Citrix receiver. So if you have, say, old Citrix farm and a new Citrix farm, you can run both the receivers on the same machine. That all those things we do with kernel object isolation. So we do isolate all the kernel objects, like we track all semaphores, mutex, events, file mapping objects. There are a couple of more I forgot, but we do isolate all of them, or we redirect them if needed. So that's one of the things which line of business apps do have. They have this kind of problems. JavaScript, I just mentioned about it. Database components, we do again. Earlier we had a database product, but now we don't. But we still have our engine has capability to adhere to SQL related. So if you have a database backend running on some server which is a changed address, and your application is half coded with some other address, we can just redirect it. Network redirection, database credentials redirection, we can do all that. Credentials in the sense the database name and all that. This is another unique one, OS to app events. So not just API calls which are going, but even the kind of events which operating system signals back to the application, inter-application communication kind of things. We do track those as well, and we can control them, that's the thing. So if there is a very old application which is doing something nasty, we can control it, because if you imagine it's like an app inside a virtual bubble. Virtual bubble, anything going out of it or coming into it is under control. So we can monitor, manage all those things. Windows services is one network subsystem I spoke about, and COM components, we do virtualize COM as well, which is a pain, but we do. Yeah. Okay, tricks of the trade, very quickly. File and registry redirection is a must for most of the virtualized applications, otherwise virtualization doesn't make sense. So we do that, as do other vendors. Level 2 of complexity, it's like rising complexity, involves kernel object isolation, kernel object redirection, and COM related apps. Most of the business apps, if they are heavy duty business apps, they are using these kind of things. So we do redirect, isolate them, virtualize them in a way. And then comes the third level, which I'm not sure if any other vendors do that, but because our virtualization is built at core, it is built on the compatibility grounds. So it's very important for us to adhere to all these things, because an app can do anything which you never know what an app does. So we do network virtualization, we do JavaScript related deprecated calls, converting into better sensible calls. OS to event apps, which I said, Windows services, and then even the backend database kind of thing. So we do adhere to all these phases. So if you see complexity wise, this is a must have for everyone. This is something we really see in most of the line of business apps. We have to work this out. We do work it out, sorry. We do address this. And the third one is not seen in so many apps, but is still important for enterprises. So we do address that as well. Okay, now here is one last important slide. How many minutes are we?
Just go. Just go on.
They're telling me to.
I don't fight off. Just go.
Okay, so this is something I really want to emphasize, because I know most of you will use one of these products. And as a technology, we don't want to give users an option either to choose them or us. That is a very bad way of going ahead. So we want to play together with all the vendors, and technical, again, this slide I'm showing not from commercial's perspective, but from technology perspective. Who can we join hands with? What layer do we work? How do we complement their technology? So that if user already has a app volumes, they already have app build. We don't want them to close that and use ours now. So we want to complement them. So first thing is app layering. We are compatible with most of the app layering products. If you have app volumes, app disks, unidesks, I'm not sure about others, but we do have because
Not sure about
SS Logics is a different product. Yeah. Anyway, because the way we work around is we are completely in the user layer, and we are a very thin layer, if you see, very thin lightweight layer. So we do complement them. And then if you see the other one, application virtualization, we have already done a lot of work with AppV. And even with ThinApp, we haven't done a lot, but technically we should be able to complement ThinApp as well. So for example, AppV doesn't address compatibility issues. We do it for them.
Which means that we could containerize a ThinApp package or an AppV package, but it could also be the other way around. So you could also put a Cloudhouse container in an AppV package. So if AppV is what you normally use, and you also use it as a deployment mechanism, maybe with Bram's AppV schedule or something, or with one of Timothy's tools, you can still do this. We don't require a separate way of deploying our containers. So you can basically use whatever you want, even SCCM, if that's what you like.
Okay, coming to the next one. That's for app masking. I spoke to Logic guys yesterday. Technology-wise, we didn't do any POCs, but I see we clearly can complement each other, because we are at the top layer, they are at some altitude down there. So we can complement, and we can bring not just compatibility, but all our solutions onto all these vendor platforms. Containers, Docker, again, we can sit within a Docker container, just seamlessly deploy it and do our magic there. Even Windows containers for that sake. And user environment management kind of tools, even Absence and all these tools, we do play well with them. And application packaging, say you already have Flexera or Advanced Installer, these kind of vendors. If they want to use our virtualization, we can play with them. So this is all, we want to join hands with as many good products out there. And then the solutions, again, as I mentioned, I'll go back a little. This is at the heart of our product. And this is the most difficult bit, that's why nobody else does it. So when we say we are doing compatibility, that means we are taking a lot of care to cover all those 360 degrees of the application, what all can go on. That makes it very easy for me as a developer to mold our product to a new challenge. Say, You want stateless, I already have engine which does similar activity, let me mold it for that. So solutions wise, if you see, Evergreen IT, Remco will speak more about it if he gets time.
Probably not.
Okay, so Evergreen IT, he'll talk about it. MSIX, really a kind of new kid in the town thing, but we have some really good proposition for MSIX. If I get time, I'll talk about it. Then stateless. Any cloud server, you want to just migrate your data, want to retain it, you want elastic solution, elastic computing. So you just want to spawn a VM, do your work, chuck it somewhere else, shut down your VM. Why do you want to keep it open all the time? So based on that compatibility engine which we have, we can address each of these solutions. And then security, again, because we are trapping everything from events to APIs to everything. So we do track all the security, we can take care of that, which old legacy apps or even modern apps, sometimes they ignore security actually. Browser compatibility, we spoke about already IE related stuff which Remco said. And the last one, what's next? I don't know, but whatever it is, I can fix it.
Now I'm on, eh?
Yeah. Now the boring session starts.
Sorry, did I say that? A little demo then before we end. So this is just an example I did a long time ago. Maybe some of you remember the Google Earth issue that I fixed for Citrix XenApp. So the issue was that Google Earth didn't work correctly on XenApp. The first user could launch it, and the next user would just get nothing, no error message, but no Google Earth. And this is actually quite a common issue. And I wrote this, which I think is still a great solution, but it consisted of a kernel mode driver, a service, and something that injects into Google Earth. And if you come to think of it, if this doesn't work on Monday morning, do you want to wait until I'm recovered from my hangover from E2E, or do you want to get this from a company that supports it? So actually, I started to see, these things I fixed in the past because people asked it, and I thought it was cool. Can we do this with a product? And actually, we can do these things out of the box, and it's not really difficult. So this is basically what I want to show, and a question that people ask me a lot is, can you run multiple instances of Skype for Business? Because maybe you have one from your own organization and one from the customer's organization that you joined. Or as in my case, I have one for the Citrix user group and I have one for my company. So the demo is to show that we can fix this issue, and if I'm in luck, my video will actually start playing.
This is Skype.
Will it set it to autoplay? Or?
This is
My
Skype.
lovely assistant will start the video now.
Yeah. This is Skype.
Yeah. Okay, there we go.
So you'll see Remco chatting to himself.
Yes.
That must be fun.
It's fun.
Never stops, I can tell you. So this is just 2 instances, and the nice thing is we don't actually need to create a container of Skype for Business. So I just can run the physically installed Skype for Business virtually. So I'm virtualizing the kernel objects that prevent Skype for Business from launching 2 times, and I virtualize the keys and credential vault where Skype for Business stores your accounts. So on the left, I'm logged in with my second link instance, which is my user group account, and right is my company account. And basically,
I'll read the message out. I'll read it out. Wow, that's great using Cloudhouse containers. Now I can talk to myself with the smiley, and it's double the fun.
Twice the fun. Wow.
Twice the fun. Yeah.
But it's just to highlight how easy it is, and the essence is you just configure isolation of kernel objects, and you configure the container to launch Skype for Business, and that's it. Okay? Yeah? Can you go through more demo?
We'll quickly go through the, I think this is the Google Earth thing. I won't show the whole thing, but we'll take you through the last slide, I guess. The last end of it. It's again simple.
Let's do the whole thing, it's not that long.
Really?
Yeah.
We have to talk about every night. MSIX.
Just play.
If it's too long, we'll just walk out.
I blame him for that.
Just start it. Just my mouse isn't moving. There we go. So this is just to highlight the issue I talked about earlier. This is Google Earth. We tried to launch it a second time on the second instance. It just fails to launch. It doesn't do anything. I tried to report this bug to Google many times, and they just ignore it. So what we're doing here is just starting our packager, start the capture, and basically start your installer, do a setup next finish. installed. So this is the run phase that Priya talked about earlier. So we will do a separate capture of anything that is installed, written, configured, or during this launch phase, and we present this as an option. So you can choose to include some of the stuff that you saw, and typically this would be enter your license key or enter your configuration, the database server to connect to or something. And we capture this, we put it in the container, and even the stuff you ignore, we save the raw snapshot of it. So if you test the package and you see, oh, I missed something, it's very easy to go back to the editor, get the base rel data, and say, well, actually I do need this, and include it in the container. But once we finished it here, we have a container, and then obviously we can launch it. We can deploy it, but we can also launch it directly. So what we are going to do now is add the mutex isolation. And now we're launching first instance and a second instance in session 2. And it works. Yeah, let's skip that one.
We'll skip Citrix Receiver, which is, these are all on YouTube, so you can just...
Yeah, we can send it to Alex later, but basically, for some reason, a lot of customers ask, can I run 2 different versions of Citrix Receiver on the same desktop? Whoa. And I think the reason is that they have legacy like ZenApp 4.5, which needs the old Citrix client, and they have a new environment. So actually, we were able to do this out of the box. So we have the old online plugin that we all love and like, and we have the new receiver running.
Yeah, we did it for one of the very big banks. So they were wondering why we have an old farm, but we had to do it for them. So we're not all about legacy. A real short thing because we are running out of time.
Yeah, we'll do this as last thing. So, and this I think is also a bit related to Ingmar's question. Like, it's great you can pick up this incompatible stuff. You can throw it in a container, and now my incompatible legacy old stuff runs on my new operating system. But inherently, you've not changed the application, you've not made it modern to do the Microsoft speak. So obviously, Microsoft published something called the Desktop Bridge. Has anyone used the Desktop Bridge? A few hands.
Yeah, that's fine.
So the Desktop Bridge more or less works. It's not maybe the nicest tool on earth, but if the application is not compatible with Windows 10, you cannot run it through the Desktop Bridge. So this means that you still don't have a path to make it UWP or modern. So what we can actually do is put the application in the container first. That makes it compatible with Windows 10. Then we can run it through the Desktop Bridge or through the MSIX tools once they are out. And we're working with Microsoft to support MSIX out of the box. So my expectation there is that we get a tick box in the packager, produce an MSIX, right? Because it saves you the step of going through all these conversion tools. But basically, once you've got a UWP, new challenges arrive. Because in UWP, you cannot write, for instance, to the applications folder. Okay? So I took an example, Notepad++, because I thought that's an easy application that's more or less written conform Windows standards. I convert it to UWP. After I put it in a container, it works nicely. And I test it, and it pops up, hey, there is an update for Notepad++. And guess what? The auto updater wants to write to the applications folder, which is forbidden in UWP. Do you as an organization want to go through the Desktop Bridge for every update that you get? It's a pain in the ass. So what we can now do is detect that there is an auto update going on, and we redirect the update files to the local app data package cache folder belonging to the UWP app. This means it's in the managed path of the application. So if you uninstall it, we will remove all this data. But it does mean that you can do auto update of a legacy application that you converted to UWP. And in essence, which is at least my take of what MSIX will bring us, is a path to do configuration and updates in UWP apps. So I think we are a bit ahead of the game, but the goal is to make this evergreen thing. So once it works, keep it working. Yes, Sean?
Just one quick question. App data roaming or app dating local?
Local.
Okay. Bravo.
We're not fooling anyone, no.
Actually, it's even local low, I believe.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've listened to you, Sean. So. There's a folder, if I open it, I just redirect it to local with our redirection engine. Which is obviously something else you could do, right? If you have an application that persists in writing a humongous number of files to the roaming folder that you actually don't need, redirect it. Okay? So we leave it at this?
Quick, the last one. Otherwise, he'll really be angry at me. He came to the session just for MSIX. So I'm sure Tim will be covering more of the details, but we were at the Partner Summit before this build announcement was made. And I was there as a two-day workshop. So we were one of those partners who are participating. All these were at the workshop. But you know, every time Andrew and his team members, they said that we are a distinguished partner, a unique partner, because all of the partners, if you see, they are all into the packaging side. We are the only partner who is providing virtualization for MSIX right now. So we do a very quick thing about it, but we won't do. Sorry, I don't know what's wrong. Yeah, this is the one. I'll not talk more about MSIX, I'll just talk more about what we can do right now, and we are growing this. Again, we are one of the early adopters, so we get early builds, review edge builds, but we are going to work on how we can complement MSIX going forward. First main thing is compatibility. Again, we are the chosen vendor for that, we'll do it as best as we can. Then conversion from AppX to AppV2, that's what Remco has been doing a lot of work on, converting to UWP format and all that. So we do convert all these into MSIX as well without any code change. Stateless, again, this might be a problem later on that you need to maintain state, you need to maintain it in a different folder or whatever. So we can do stateless solution for that. Then kernel levels of sandboxing, operating system, COM isolation, kernel isolation. These are a few of the more things we can do. Again, WAC related thing, of course, MSIX is not stuck to WAC. They say you can just put it on a USB stick, which is like for mass adoption, I guess. But we can do it if you need. We can modify your application dynamically to make it WAC compliant so that you can use the Windows Store. And then what is it? Sorry, I forgot. Won't need desktop app converter, yes. That has been a pain point, I think, for most of them, so we do address that. I'm sorry, we are way over our time, so we'll skip this. This was a demo session for Remco to show how we updated what he has spoken about. But that's it, I guess, and we are available whenever you want to ask us, message us, any questions, you're welcome to ask. Thank you.